Okay. So I'm going to start and maybe I'm going to give it one minute or two just to let people hop in. It looks like people are leaving from the other session, which is great. I see a few people joining in. This is going to be about Adobe Creative Cloud and AI and some of the really awesome features that you can do with Adobe Creative Cloud. So I will just give it a minute and then we'll get right in. And if you want to throw anything into chat, we'll get to those questions. And we have some people watching for those questions. Feel free to ask that. I plan to go at a pretty good pace through everything and leave some time for questions and some good stuff. So I think we're going to start. I think we got enough people here. So real quick, my name is Dave Kahn. I'm the intern assistant director for client support services at SUNY Oswego. I do a lot of things regarding classrooms and desktop support. I also adjunct and teach certain things to the technology education program, including Adobe. So this is some of the things that I'll be working on in this coming semester, as well as what maybe you can use in your fields of work. So what I hope to get out of this is you knowing some of the buzzwords, some key areas where you can get your creative juices going with AI. I'll just move things around a second here so I can get to things because, So in short, you're going to learn a couple things. One is, what is Adobe AI? You'll hear me use the word Firefly. That's what Adobe is calling their specific engine of AI. There's a lot of different things with AI. Google Gemini is incorporated with Adobe. But if we're really, really talking about Adobe AI, it's called Firefly. All right, so we're going to go through some things. I want to get things right out of the way, though. For best practices and ethics, you got to be sure, we have to have some intent and know what we're trying to do, right? We always want to keep the original, especially if we're talking about photo restoration. We're not taking a photo. I brought a photo that we're going to play with, right? I wouldn't take this photo and use AI to change my face to someone else, right? That's something else, and you can do that. But for this course, this is taking real photos, real images, and fixing them, making them better in color saturation, brightness, removing some scratches. All right, we always want to keep the original. We want to be respectful of that photo. Some photos are hundreds of years old, right? So we want to make sure that we're not, going outside of our area here. We want to label that it's been AI assisted or restored. Full transparency. We shouldn't be necessarily doing a lot of AI modifications without letting people know. We don't want to invent historical details, all right? And this is all, kind of at your own leisure here, but changing something historically to be a historic picture doesn't seem to make too much sense. And just be careful with faces. Again, AI does a really good job sometimes, and you can't even tell that something's been changed, and that could be bad. But also it can do a horrible job, and you can tell. I tend to put a little slogans in my slides, so you'll see this stuff here going on. And I like to say, if someone from that photo's time wouldn't recognize it, you went too far, right? So if you're trying to do something from the 1920s and people got cell phones, that's probably not the right look. Okay, so what you're going to learn is we're going to go through Adobe Express real quick. I'll go through the licensing of that. We're then going to use Adobe Photoshop's AI tools to fix some pictures, some generative fills, and just see what we can do with it. Then we're going to get into Adobe Illustrator. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but I will show you where AI is and all the things you can do with it. For those that do a lot of vector graphics versus the raster graphics, vector being mathematical and you can stretch it out, no worry about resolution. Adobe has come a whole long way, making it very easy to make vector graphics now, which is really changing up the industry for people who struggled with that. And I'll just reiterate, our best practices and ethics to make sure we're all on the same page. All right, so I'm going to go right into Adobe Express, and I'll switch around screens a little bit. To start, everyone that has an active SUNY Oswego account already has a license to Adobe Express. There's nothing you need to do. You don't need to call the help desk and get an account. It's there. All right, what Adobe Express does, and this is somewhat my own personal opinion, and again, I do teach this in my class. Adobe Express is the Swiss Army knife for everything. It can do a ton of stuff. You don't have to really modify or do anything. But it also, for people that are true designers and really know the other applications, this helps get those creative juices flowing. Whether it's called a mood board, a design board, or just, old-fashioned pen and paper jotting things down, Adobe Express can help that. It helps non-designers kind of get a sense for the design feel, and it also has a wealth of templates. So I'm going to slide over to, yay. So this is Adobe Express. How to get there, aside from sliding my screen, if you were just to go to adobe.com, all right, I'm already signed in, but you'd be able to sign in and you would have some similar landing page like this. If you have licenses for the other Adobe apps, they would show up here as well, of all the things you have access to. I have Adobe Creative Cloud. We call it all apps, so I have all the apps. So here's where I could go on my home computer and also download the Adobe products. I can have it installed on up to 3 machines. If I install it on the 4th, it will actually be very nice and say, hey, we need to take it off another one. And you can just keep hopping around. Adobe makes it very nice. But this is where you would go to download and install on your personal machine. If you want these on your SUNY-owned devices, they are in our CTS App Store, but you will need a license. When in doubt, call our help desk. We will help you out. All right. But again, we're talking about Adobe Express. So I'm going to go back up here. Another nice way is just doing Adobe Express, just Googling it, and it takes you right in. Go to Adobe Express. Boom. I am in Adobe Express. All right. And from here, you can see already it's really, really geared towards templates. I can do things like social media ads. I can easily come up with templates for TikTok videos, Instagram. It DOES does meet accessibility guidelines for the most part, which is awesome. Trust but verify, please. But most time it does seem to meet those things. I'm not going to go through all of these things. This is really about AI. But I really encourage you all to take a look. One of the things I do in my class when we're building a brand or trying to be the next influencer is you can start throwing all sorts of, again, mood board, colors, things that you want to do, and really create a brand quite easily. That's something really nice. And again, all sorts of templates. Templates galore. And I bring this up because I know some folks on campus will spend money on other products, which I'm not going to say what is better, but this is free and included and we support it. So we tend to try and use things we already have. All right, so right off the bat, we have generative AI right there sitting pretty. I'm going to click on that. And from here, I can do a bunch of things. I can upload media. I can just create something. I can remove and touch up objects. And we're going to do this in Photoshop, which is a little more granular. But again, for those that are just getting started, for those that just want to do something really quick, Adobe Express can do all of this, including remove, in that picture, I hope it can be seen. There's a gentleman on a bike probably, and there's a really big airplane behind them. They're using Adobe Express to remove that object. And we'll do that in real time in a second. I'm just going to show you some fun. I'm clicking on Generate Image. Okay. Now from here, we have a couple things we can do. All right, we're going to look to the left, and here's where we can do reference images. So I've already done something here, which I'll kind of hop to real quick, is I threw in a picture that I found from our website of SUNY Oswego Laker. That's the style. It's giving me some green and color. I could do composition. I can hover over, and it tells me more information. Now, aside from Adobe being, in my opinion, very expensive and somewhat greedy, Adobe does a wonderful job with their help and tutorials and user interface. So I can hover over these eyes. It will tell me more information. I can click on it and get more if I wasn't sure about these terms and seeing what it does. So I just uploaded a picture of a hockey player. I can change my styles if I wanted to. I can go down here and do some more things. But here's where the fun happens, or the magic. The big word prompting in AI, you have to prompt it. You're giving it something to do. So I put in SUNY Oswego mascot playing hockey players. Let's try something else. Let's say hockey player scoring a goal. Sure. All right. I'm going to hit next. It's going to be thinking. You can see down here, it's taking some time. And, we get a lot of questions of, what's faster, what goes. You're kind of at the mercy of your prompt, the load, how many people are using it, the complexity of it. There's really not a definitive answer. So you can see that this made 3 choices for me instantly, right? I can click on this, get bigger, take a look at what it's done. Being a hockey player, this is impossible, right? In terms of not a good picture, there's no way his left leg can go over that and be at that angle, but it gets my creative juices flowing. I also can export this as a original photograph, bring it into Photoshop or Illustrator, and start tweaking things if I wanted to, which is very nice. We can see some other things that it's made for us. Again, kind of silly, right? I don't know what he's doing with that second stick, but again, just to show you some limitations of Express, but also some cool stuff. I can change it to make a cartoon of a hockey player scoring. Let's see how that does. And I should change this, and I apologize. Under content type, here's where I can select some more details. I have realistic photo chosen, which is probably not the best when I'm asking it to make a photo, or sorry, a cartoon. But you can see that's actually not too bad, right? If I wanted to do something kind of like Disney Frozen or something, that kind of works, right? But if I were to change this to, I don't know, let's go graphic, chaotic. Let's see what happens here. See if it changes a little bit. And you can see it's going a little longer, but that's a-okay. All right. So that's kind of cool. All right, gives us a stance. So this is Adobe Express. All right, so other things you can do in here that I'm not going to go into too much detail is you can do photo manipulation and repair. I'm going to show you that in Photoshop. One thing I also want to plug here is you also can sign PDFs within Adobe Express. It's not this class, but I like to plug that in. We have a lot of calls at the help desk regarding, I need Adobe Acrobat to sign a PDF. Usually you don't need the whole thing. You just need a smaller app. So feel free to check this out. Okay, I'm going to go back to my slideshow, keep the things going. Only have 45 minutes. But one thing is, think of it as a creative scaffolding. It lets you get started. It's pretty fun in that way. It also keeps everything saved in the web, in the cloud. So I could do those things you saw and then go home, open up a browser on my iPad, doesn't matter, Mac or PC, and keep generating stuff. Very nice. All right. You don't need a heavy duty computer either. Folks that have Chromebooks or not as powerful machines, Adobe Express comes in very well. All right. So the next thing we're gonna go into is Photoshop and restoring photos with Photoshop. All right, and this is where I go back to our best practices. We want to make sure that we're being, aware and know what we're trying to do with a purpose. All right. Why do old photos matter? Right up there, family, archives, history, memories. This literally is a picture that I wish didn't have a crease in it. It's from when I was in college at SUNY Potsdam. So pictures matter, right? So with Adobe, we can hopefully remove this crease, right? That big crease right there. I don't know if you can see in this, but there's actually, it got ripped. So right there it's been ripped. So there's some missing things as well. If you were looking at it really close, saturation and color balance, that's all stuff that people in art know way more than me, but you'll be able to play with that too. All right, some things that Adobe can do that we're going to do. We're going to hopefully be able to remove some scratches. We're also going to be able to take a black and white photo and use AI, hopefully give it color, which is pretty cool. And we'll be able to play with contrast as well. AI is not going to replace this and do things for you. It's a helper. especially when we get into photos. You saw the photos that I did with Adobe Express, right? There's two sticks, you know, physically the person can't do that. It's not going to replace humans fixing things and making sure things work. All right, we're not rewriting history. We're just making it age better if we can. All right, so let me get to Photoshop here. Now, I'm showing Photoshop 2026. So if you have Adobe Photoshop, open it up. You can go to update and make sure it's fully updated. The reason why this is important is Adobe every other day is releasing new beta plugins for AI and improvements. So you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't do the updates, okay? What I'm going to specifically focus in on are neural filters that are built into Adobe. All right, specifically the photo restoration, the colorization, which gives us colors, and classic touch-ups. For people that are not new to Photoshop, this is where I think you all will shine. Because if you take your old tools, the cloning, the stamp tools, just some tips and tricks you did to get by in an old school Photoshop, now with the AI part, put those together, you're going to be rock stars. So I'm going to move over to Photoshop. All right. I'm in Photoshop right now. Cool beans, right? If you wanted to, you can go to help along the top. This is where I was talking about with updates. You want to check updates, and it will go through and do that. I'm not going to do that right now. But I have a plethora of pictures to show you here. So let's close that out so I can see what I'm doing. I'll move you down there. Perfect. Awesome. All right, so I took a picture of this. If you want to know how I imported it, ask me offline. I basically scanned it. And I'm going to show you the quick and dirty, so don't judge me. Normally, I would probably do this, make a secondary layer so I can work on that, and then drag it to the trash and stuff. I'm not going to do that for this. This is just showing you how I can really hopefully fix this line right here and maybe get through this. All right, so one thing I want to show is regenerative background or fixing those things, namely this rip right here and maybe this light or tear right here. So I mentioned earlier, Adobe is wonderful with help tutorials and AI. I'm just hovering over the tools on the left, and it gives a wonderful video. I can actually click more. If I wanted to even dig deeper, one great thing that I love about Adobe, specifically for the Mac, I'm not sure if it's for the Windows, is if you go to help in any Adobe product and type in, it actually will show you where those things are in real time. And if I were to click on it, it will do it for me. All right, so again, I go back to teaching my freshman class. I show them something like this, and then my big rule is, don't ask me a question unless you've tried this first. Like, I want to show them how to help themselves, and this is awesome. All right, so your help and searching anything you want right in here is great. There's also hands-on tutorials that will go through and do all sorts of things, including going into AI. Highly recommend you check that out. But I've talked enough. So what I'm going to do is click on our lasso tool to the left. I have selection brush enabled, and I'm just going to go over to that tear. All right, I believe you can see it. You can see Generative Fill right here and remove. You can also see that just by clicking on it, I've kind of put a pink smudge on that tear. I'm going to click remove. See what happens. It's going through. It's thinking hard. Oh my God. Right? That's fixed. All right, if I wanted to go up here, same thing, hit remove. Let's get rid of that, see if it knows. Now, I probably wouldn't do it that way. I'd probably just use a stamp tool or something. But now I'm just touching stuff up. And again, for those that know Adobe, I probably wouldn't do it this way. But the nice thing is it is putting layers for each thing that I adjust, meaning I can go back and remove things. If I wanted to, I could go to my history. Oops, not history. History. And I can go back in time, right, and remove things. I'm not damaging the original. It's digitized, so it's not a big deal. But boom, here's where I am. All right, this is pretty cool. All right, I still have this horrible line through it, but I've gotten rid of that big tear, right? You know, again, going back to the original, which I have somewhere. Let's just do this real quick. Going from that to this, all right, already an improvement, all right, easy to do. So the next things I want to show, all right, is, if I were just to minimize this, I've selected my whole entire screen. Probably not going to want to do that, right? But what I can do is click on Generative Fill, and here's where I can prompt it to do things. This isn't the best picture. I have another picture later, but I just don't want people to be thinking too outside the box here. Here's where I can remove backgrounds. I can put backgrounds in. I can remove all of the black and back and put, I don't know, a mountain, all right? And we'll do that. But just wanted to explain the difference between the generate and fill. So if I wanted to try and do this, let's go back to my layer here, deselect. I can kind of paint, or if you will, I'm just holding down the mouse button and kind of selecting all of this background. And this is not the best picture for this, because I probably would have cropped out the guy in the back dancing. But boom. And now if I were to put generative fill and let's say, and this might goof up. This is in real time. I haven't actually tried it with this photo. This could get crazy weird. But my intent is that it's going, to remove the background and everything and put something cool behind. So kind of funny. I don't know why I put a dude there, but you can get where I'm going with this. All right, pretty easy. If it was a better picture, or if it was a digital photo that I made myself, a lot smoother. Okay, so we're going to go back to our original photo here. Boop. All right, and talk about this line. So I'm actually going to go one step further and go here. Here's where we're going to talk about that neural filters. So Adobe forever has been wonderful with filters. You can see filters along the top. Boom. Feel free to play with all of these. There's some good stuff in here. But the ones that we're going to focus in on are really this neural filters. If I click on this, you can see all of the filters that Adobe has released as of today. You can also click on waitlist and see the stuff that's coming in the future. All right, which is very cool. Shows that Adobe is really going all in on this. Okay, I'm going to go back to filters. If you're clicking on this right now, you may note that you have a little cloud in this area where it says beta. You'll have to download these filters. They're not too big. They're probably under a gig. You would just click. It takes a second to download. It's just to save space, something Adobe does. All right, I want to go through these for you. So for one, there's the skin smoothing, right? I had a bad day. We got some acne. We got some stubble or something. This can go through. It's automatically detecting the two faces in this picture. I didn't do that. It just knows. All right, and I can fix it. I don't know because it's such old. I'm going to hit go, and it processed. I don't know if I see a difference. I guess a little bit. And I can adjust things, get really creative with it, right? Same thing with smart. If we go over to the smart photo, you can see that it actually can change facial expressions. All right, the picture on the left, individual is closed mouth and not necessarily smiling. Picture on the right, his mouth is opened, he's smiling, and he's looking up and to the left. All right, going back to best practices, be careful with this, right? If you go for a photo shoot for something and then they're changing your facial expressions, you can get in trouble. All right, but this is a nice way to do certain things like that. Makeup transfer is a really cool one. I hope it doesn't do it to me. It can actually, as you can see in this photo, apply makeup to a different face. Never used this, haven't had a need, but pretty cool nonetheless. When we get into other things, you can see we can mix up different landscapes, transform things from another biosphere, if you will, to something like this, such as the case here. They took a valley that looks like, I don't know, spring or June, and made it into an icy tundra, just like it is today. All right. Same thing with styles, right? Here's where you could take a photo and maybe make it a little more surreal or a little more realistic. All right. But again, we're here because we have a photo that's kind of goofy, right? It's got some scratches on it. So, take a look at all of these things. Very fun. We are going to do this one coming up. Another really cool one that you may want to play with is Super Zoom. And I will show that in a different slide. That has the ability to zoom in while hopefully keeping the resolution so it doesn't look all blurry. And it does a pretty good job. The thing that I found out, and you'll see in my example coming up, is it's really relative on the picture and the subject matter. I was trying to be creative and used a big picture of Rich Holland's students in front of it. Not the best picture to do a zoom in. I really need one, specific point of interest or focal point, and you'll see what I mean there. We'll just, where the fun comes is right down here. All right, where we get to photo. Just trying to move my faces around here for you guys. All right, go. Perfect. So, So as you can see, and we're going to do this on the example, they have a picture of a child, same kind of crease. I'm not a photo person. I'm sure with the trained eye, there's a lot else going on with that. All right, and with this, it should be able to fix that. All right, so I'm going to, give this a go here. I'm going to say, do it up. Let's see what it does. You can see it's processing. Time is all dependent on the size of the photo and all the stuff it has to do. Boom. Not a lot, though. I don't see a lot of change. All right, now I can click here. I can do some other things. One is scratch reduction. I'm going to turn that up to 50 just because. You can see it's processing again. Boom. Now, full disclosure, I am just not really going that slow. I could have gone in, done some photo manipulation, really dialed it in, and then done this to make it much better. But, and I don't know, yeah, I think it's doing a good job through Zoom. On the screen, it's a little less awesome. But I've taken this, picture that has a tear in my friend Asia's coat, a big line across both of us. This is from 1998. All right, it's really old. It's dated myself, right? And I was able to clean that out. From this picture now, I don't necessarily need to use AI, maybe a little knowledge with Photoshop. I can remove the background. I can play with the photo saturation, but I could use AI, right? Some nice things are JPEG artifacts. This will helpfully remove and restore and make things a little better. I'm going to turn it on and see what we can do here. Sure. Let's see. I don't know if you'll be able to see too much difference with Zoom in this picture because I've already run it through the photo restoration, which does some of that as well. But we'll see. Boom. So it does look smoother, clearer. There's not so many shiny spots on either one of us. But pretty easy for the 5 minutes that I'm showing you this. So very powerful. And from here, I'd hit OK. Deselect. And now I'm right back to where I was, where I have one layer, my decent photo. I could do new layer. Sure. Do some fun stuff. Right? And go into here. I don't know. And then just start trimming stuff, erasing stuff. I can use my background eraser tool, which should do a good job. If I click on remove background, it may get it right. It may not. Not the best because of what it is. So I'd probably just go in to my eraser tool and just start erasing. I'll get rid of you. All right. So any questions about Photoshop photo restoration? Feel free to put it in the chat. I'm going to keep going, but put it into chat. The next thing I wanted to show, we fixed the riff, we did that, cool, is black and white to color. So I believe this is Penfield Library or the library downtown. I got it offline in the fair use, so I'm hopefully not, doing anything illegal here. So I have a black and white photo. I want to give it color. So same thing. I'm going to go to my neural filters, go right to colorize. And if I were to click on that, it tells me what it's going to do. Let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. Boom. Instant color. I can play with the colors, of course, with these sliders. Making it a little more, less green, less saturated. But I've taken, black and white, there it is. And within seconds, right? Seconds, boom, color. And going back to best practice and stuff, be careful with colors and making sure that you're getting colors correct. One thing that pops into mind is our school colors, right? It doesn't necessarily know that our colors are green, gold, white, and black. And it could give us SUNY Plattsburgh colors on a hockey jersey or something. Yikes, right? So, you don't have a lot of ability to change too much yet. It's going to do its best guess. But something very, very cool. I use this to bring a little more emphasis when I teach class and I put up an old photo. Sometimes black and white definitely captures people, and sometimes it's just a black and white photo. Throwing a little color on it tends to spice up the mood, if you will. All right, so very cool. And again, just like everything else, it's non-destructive. It's in its layer. I can always go back through history and continue to edit. Very cool stuff with that. Gonna go back real quick. I think we've done all of that fun stuff. Generative fill, again, not huge. So this is another one I was going to try and do actually with color. Let's try this just because you guys are great. Boom. Let's see what happens here. That's not bad. So you can see how quickly I did that, and not too shabby, right? For the most part, in terms of black and white, right? That's it is now. That's what it was. Very, very cool. So with generative fill, I would recommend doing a different picture besides this. Let's see if I can find something that's a little better here. So if I were just to click remove background, we've tried this before, did a better job now. What I did was I flattened my layers and stuff. That's other Photoshop stuff that we're not going to talk about here. But essentially, you're going to have a photo, right? One photo, one layer, one background. I've selected my select tool, my marquee tool. I can select it all. I can do pieces of it. And then this wonderful context pops up. All right, I got some things I can do, but if I wanted to move the background, just hit that, boom. Did a pretty good job, and now I can do fun things, right? I could also generate a background. So let's remove the background, and now let's generate a background. And let's do, I don't know, snowy mountains. Let's see what happens. I don't think I have my filter selected properly, so let's see if it knows enough to fix it. Yeah, not so great. So what I'd want to do with this is probably flatten my image again. Boom. And then try something like this. So I'd probably do this, this. You guys get the picture. I'm not going to go too deep into this without editing, but point being, you can do quite a cool things with it. It will give you different selections if you want to go through and try and do things like that. One thing that I like to do is you can square off anything, right? So I can do something like this, generative fill, eagles, because dogs are cool. And this should plop a dog there. Again, you have to know a little bit about Photoshop with your layers, masks, and everything, which is going down here. But boom, puts a dog right there. And now I can take that dog and I can move it around, right? I can do all sorts of fun things with it if I wanted to. You know, I could generate. Same thing, I can. Go to town, generate as much as you want. All right. But again, in terms of is it ethical and right, that's for you to decide based on your content, your job, your pictures that you're trying to do. But you can see that it actually knew to put the Siamese cat on an angle, kind of sitting on the mountain. That's pretty cool. And again, I think a lot of us get in the habit of AI is a quick and dirty. It's almost like Google. It's going to give me that quick answer. And it can do that. But where the power I feel lies with AI is having a conversation with it, to go back and forth with it, to keep tweaking it and really getting it down to something that is original, unique, and to you. This is kind of cool for showing you guys, but you get what I'm saying. Put some time in. All right. So let me just show you real quick Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator is known for its vector graphics, its layouts, does a lot more. More and more as Adobe evolves, I'm having difficulty finding the lines between when Illustrator comes into play and when Photoshop does. They're definitely married hand in hand now. But very much, you know, you're familiar with the Adobe landing page here. I can do a boatload of stuff here. I'm just going to, just give us a web template. And I'm instantly prompted with generate vectors. And from here, I can generate all sorts of wonderful things. You can see that I'm using the Vector 4 module. It also has partners. And this is what's important, is we have Gemini 2.5. All right. Now, the campus has Gemini licenses for everyone. It does not include the Pro. If you do want the Pro and you're going to use it, put a request into the help desk. Some people do have this. Some people don't. Put a help desk in if you need it and are going to use it. All right. I'm going to stick with Vector 4 just because that's what I'm used to. And again, prompt. If I just put a hockey player in, if you've been to any of our AI workshops or John's workshops, putting a one-word prompt in probably isn't the best. So I'm just doing this because it's a presentation and I want to get stuff out, right? But, you know, a beagle playing hockey. And it's giving me more stuff with crows. Not sure why. It's kind of funny, though. And once I have my prompt, I can do some fun things like style references. I can throw in, like just we did in Adobe Express, maybe my own beagle, maybe a Soon Oswego jersey. I can change my color presets. But for right now, I'm just going to hit generate. And this is something that I think is truly powerful, because if you're teaching vector and you're having people do your paths and building things, it's nice to also give them something that they can modify and something that they thought of. Think of something that you want. You give it to them, boom, and now you have this, all of the paths, everything. And the reason why it's cool is vector, you can stretch it out without losing any of the resolution. Boom. So for me and the class, we build logos, building your brand. This is a game changer for logo building. So now you're not necessarily constrained to what you can do or what you want to deal with vectors and Illustrator and Photoshop. Now it's just give it a good prompt, and now you can actually, you know, take some of these if you wanted to, right? I can take different bits and pieces of this and start modifying it if I wanted to, which is wild, right? There's my anchors. I can start manipulating his little nose if I wanted to, take his nose away. So in terms of teaching this class, if I'm teaching vector graphics, I'll throw up something like this and then show how I can remove the nose, change the color of the nose, make it bigger, smaller. Then at that aha moment, oh, this is really cool. Then we show them how to use the lasso tool and the shapes and the paths and how hard it is, right? But this is pretty cool stuff. For those that have played with vector graphics, this is huge. For me, it is because I'm not that good at it. So this is huge that I can start really taking it apart. All right. And again, if I were to go to help, all right, tons of things in here. You do AI, goes through all sorts of things there. There's tutorials, which is great. Boom. They can walk you through things, including all of the new features in AI, which is great. So definitely see this being a huge game changer for people that are using Illustrator. All right, going back, getting close to the end of the hour. So I want to end on a good note and leave it for questions, if any, or if anyone wants us to show something or play with something. I just go back to the best practices again, really want to drill that home. And the reason is when AI first came out and still is, the thing, I'm sure you've heard of it, AI slop or whatever, right? And I'm one of those people too. I love it. I love Sora. I love making funny things, but it's different than what I'm talking about right now. This is taking something professionally and fixing it or using it in a way that's not that it's not professional the other way, but professional, right? We're not making something necessarily from the ground up. We're taking an existing photo and improving upon it. So with Adobe, they make it very easy. And again, I'm not doing it justice by just showing you a quick 30 minutes of this. This is just to get your beak wet and go, oh, I'm gonna maybe go home, all right? Because there's your homework tonight. Maybe go home, call a relative, get an old photo, all right? Or if you have an old photo on your desk, or it's part of your job and you're doing some sort of restoration or historical thing, play with this stuff. Give it a shot. My email's not on here. I apologize for that. You can find me on the Oswego page. It's david.kahn@oswego.edu. Shoot me an email. I'll do my best to get back to you or point you to the right people that can help you out with things if you do have questions about this. But again, the Adobe tutorials are amazing. Our LinkedIn Learning is amazing for all of this stuff. Our Campus Technology Services Help Desk, we're here to help. Email help@oswego.edu. John, I don't know if you dabble in any of this to sell it, but maybe coming up, right? So they'll be out there. So be on the lookout for those through campus announcements or through the SELT listservs, or just shoot me an email. I'm gonna shut up now.
There is one question in chat.
Okay.
It's from Michael, and he asks if he sees that you're a premium member, you need to sign up to be a member before we can do that.
Are we talking about Adobe?
This was early on.
Okay.
So yeah, I think
Adobe
it was
Express. Yeah, your Adobe Express screen says that you're a premium member.
Yeah. You'll be able to do
we need
everything so you'll be able to do everything that I've done. So the things you won't be able to do as much of is using Adobe Firefly. It uses credits. We have a campus joined pool of credits that we all share. So if you have a full account through Adobe Express, you'll be able to do everything in Adobe Express. You'll need an Adobe Creative Cloud license to do things that I've been doing in Illustrator and Photoshop. And if you don't have one of those, contact our help desk and we can walk you through the process to get one of those. But don't be alarmed with the Premiere. There's certain features that I'm sure that I have that you don't, but it shouldn't affect what I've shown you to a degree, because I do this with my class of students and they're not Premiere or premium users. And again, Adobe's constantly changing and adding things. So what I may have because I'm an admin today, you'll probably have in a couple of weeks. But Michael, do you see something specific you can't do, or you just saw that and wanted to ask?
I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, give it a try. If you see a limitation, give the help desk a call and we're happy to see what's going on with it. Anything else? Any other questions, comments? concerns? Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I think this is very cool. And if you want to continue the conversation, you feel free to send me an email. Have a great Friday and a great weekend. I'll see you in class Monday.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, stop. Yeah.
Just hit stop.
Yep. And then yes.